Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. Today we have another PNSO figure to look at. It is another 2020 PNSO figure, and this is the first time we've had Wilson released without a base. So definitely something that I think a lot of people were probably looking forward to because not everyone is a fan of the base, but also so that you can actually afford the figure because a lot of the time people can't really afford the more expensive figures that have the base, which even for having a base and everything, PNSO's price points are unbelievable for the amount of quality you get for a figure. That is without question, but now having this version without a base also allows, again, for more people to have the opportunity to own Wilson the Tyrannosaurus Rex, who is exactly who we are looking at here. By now having a cheaper price point without the base, it allows the figure to be cheaper overall. And this also kind of sports a newer paint scheme, a little bit of a different paint scheme than the previous two. And I have actually reviewed the other two in the past, so now we get to review Wilson number 3. The box art here is beautiful like it always is. You could see an absolutely gorgeous image of Wilson there on the front of the box. And then PNSO up here in the corner. If we look at the top, we just see kind of some trees and stuff. And every life deserves your respect, which is 100% true on the part of PNSO. A beautiful thing to add on there onto the box. If we actually turn the box around, now we see the English version here of Wilson the Tyrannosaurus Rex. And again, another image of the Rex itself. So without further ado, let's go ahead and break this box open and take a look at the newest version of Wilson. Just like with the previous two releases, it's upside down. The previous two releases that we've looked at here on the channel from PNSO, which were the Sinoceratops, the baby Sinoceratops, and then we also had the baby Tyrannosaurus Aaron on the channel recently. This is the third release now from the PNSO line for 2020, and you can see that it also includes another one of these really nice booklets like we had in the other two. You can see PNSO, of course, right there, and another image of Wilson looking incredibly awesome. And then once we open the booklet up here to actually take a look at it, you can see some more images of Wilson, as well as the skeletal structure there of Wilson, along with a ton of information here to read, which is really cool. I love these booklets that are included with the PNSO figures because they're always so fun to read and really interesting. Of course, I'm not going to read it all for you. That's your job when you actually purchase the figure. And then if we turn it around, we also have the Chinese version as far as all the wonderful information. So awesome additions to the figures continuously are these really nice booklets from PNSO. And then here is Wilson the Tyrannosaurus Rex version 3. He's not completely in frame. There we go, pretty close. Another absolutely beautiful looking version of this Tyrannosaurus Rex. Again, they've done a great job of giving this a very nice realistic looking paint scheme. Beautiful, actually. Looking at it here in the light, it really has some very nice color variation to it, some beautiful color tones, and a really nice dark wash, which if you know me, you know I love my dark washes, and I think they've done a great job of including that on the figure as well, which is actually quite different than a lot of the PNSO figures because they usually include like a lighter wash, but this time they've given it a nice dark wash in certain areas, giving this a very realistic appearance. And it's another absolutely beautiful rendition of Wilson the Tyrannosaurus Rex here at first glance, but the only way to truly tell just how beautiful is with a closer look, so let's go ahead and do that right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of Wilson, you can see how nicely done the detailing is. We actually don't really need to go over the actual sculpt and detail of the figure, because as I had stated, we've already actually reviewed this figure 3 times now. This will be the 3rd time. So if you want a more detailed look at the actual sculpt of the figure, I will include links to the other 2 reviews down in the description of the previous 2 versions of Wilson. So we really only need to mostly look at what is different on this one as opposed to the previous 2, which of course straight away we stated is the lack of a base. This one doesn't have a base, so that allows more people to have the opportunity to purchase it. But as far as the actual paint scheme goes, you can see some very nice kind of blacks or like dark browns right here in the face area. You can also see that the nostril is painted with a nice darker coloration there to elaborate the nostril inside, which is a very nice choice. You can see like a lighter, almost like a light gray here on the underside of the lower jaw. The eye also has a nice darker coloration there, kind of like a dark black that borders around the eye and really helps to elaborate the eye. You can see the eye itself is beautiful looking as far as the paintwork goes. You can see quite a bit of color inside the eye there, so that gives it a very nice very realistic appearance, as well as a beautiful gloss coat included on that eye to really bring the eye detail out and make it look like it has that genuine realistic wet look. You can see over here the eye looks gorgeous as well. I really love the way PNSO has been painting, or I guess actually decaling, the eyes of their figures, and this is yet another really beautiful eye. I'm actually having a hard time trying to figure out if that's a decal or if that's paint. It's really hard to tell, but what I can tell is that the eye is beautiful and looks extremely realistic and lifelike. Again, you can see some more variation of color on this side, pretty much what I had said on the previous side, but you can now see like there's some brown here, which I didn't really mention over here. Some nice browns right here, but then again the darker colors right there, and the lighter lower jaw. The jaw is of course articulated, and you can see the teeth are painted quite nicely. Nice whitish coloration for the teeth, and they don't appear to be sloppy or anything really. Maybe just a tiny hair looks to be painted there on the tongue on the inside of the mouth. So there's a really little bit of sloppiness, but honestly that's probably just limited to mine. I wouldn't expect that to be a big time issue. You can see the paint job on the inside of the mouth also looks really nicely done, but the mouth is so small it's actually kind of hard to get in there and take a look at it. But the detailing inside the mouth is off the charts incredible as well. I really like that when you look in there, it actually looks like it doesn't end. You can see it gets very dark in the throat region, so it genuinely looks like it has a real throat. Very cool as far as that goes. And you can also see the paintwork here on like those skin flaps there on the side of the mouth. Looks beautiful, very realistic tones of color chosen for the inside of the mouth. As we start to move back into the neck, you can now see how beautiful that wash is, and how that dark wash has brought out all the scale work in incredibly nice fashion. You can also see that the top of the head and the top of the neck here has a darker coloration that runs down the entire back of our Tyrannosaurus until about here, and then it turns into stripes, and I think that looks really cool. I like how they've kind of left the spinal column of the dinosaur there like a lighter coloration, but then bordered that black around it. It really helps to elaborate that area and really looks very striking. I actually really like the way they've done that. As you can see, we move down here, we also have some more kind of darker coloration there in the neck, and that kind of wash that they've included, that dark wash, really darkens some of the areas that would otherwise be a lot lighter, like the stomach region, and I think it looks extremely nice the way they've done that. Incredibly realistic. You can also see a similar look to the arms here as far as like that darker color. Beautifully painted nails as well with a nice dark black, which really looks good. And you can generally see just a lot of color variation throughout the figure, almost like yellows or like yellowish browns, and then you have like orangish browns and just tons of really nice realistic skin tone. You can also see a little bit of like that yellowish brown right there. And just kind of overlooking the figure again, man, the detail and sculpt on this Tyrannosaurus is just absolutely unbelievable. Easily one of the most highly detailed sculpts that I have ever had in my collection of any Tyrannosaurus is this Wilson version. Just looking at like the scales and the skin reacting and skin folding, skin detail, it is just unbelievable. Absolutely incredible. Look at all those beautiful osteoderms all over the legs. And I know I said I wasn't really going to talk about the sculpt much because we've reviewed it in the past, but it's just so unbelievably gorgeous when you actually look at it. No matter how many times you have looked at it in the past, it still is just unbelievable to me how highly detailed the sculpt of this PNSO Tyrannosaurus truly is. PNSO is easily one of the leading companies as far as dinosaur figures go, and you can really see why just looking at Wilson the Tyrannosaurus right here. Again, you have some more darker coloration here in the back of the leg. Lots of really beautiful color variation as we move down into the foot sculpt. And the foot sculpt itself does actually include that light wash that we were talking about that PNSO does like to include on their figures. And I absolutely love the light wash that they usually include on their figures, especially in the foot area, because it gives it kind of like that dusty appearance. With the feet being consistently stomping on the ground, walking around, it's going to have a very dirty look, a very dusty look. So that's a very realistic aspect that you would expect to see on the foot sculpt of a dinosaur and the paintwork of the foot of a dinosaur. And again, PNSO including that is an awesome decision. Really gives it a very realistic look. And then we continue to run out the length of the tail, again with lots of really nice variations of like yellowish and orangish browns. That nice striping that runs out the tail. It's very soft striping. It's not anything that's like overly dark or overly strong like with the application. It's just really nice soft striping, and it looks beautiful. Very nicely done. If we look at the opposing side, again, it looks just as beautiful as it did on the previous side. I really am a big fan of this version. I actually think this is potentially my second favorite version. I think the original Wilson is my favorite as far as the paint job goes, but I think this is probably my second favorite as far as this figure goes. Again, you can see the nice darker areas here in the stomach as far as that wash and the way they've utilized it, and all the really nice variations of browns and everything included. I also like how they've kind of like defined the muscle tone by using that darker coloration right there, really making the muscle tone jump out at you. Man, look at the unbelievable sculpt of this. It's been a little while since I've looked at Wilson, and just looking at it again, it is just mind-boggling how incredibly well sculpted this figure is. Again, the nice light wash here on the feet help the feet look super realistic, but look at the scale detail here on the underside. That is just ridiculously nice. Unbelievably well sculpted is this Tyrannosaurus. This might be the best sculpted Tyrannosaurus that I think I have in my collection, honestly. I said before it's definitely one of the best, but it might be the best, the most highly detailed Tyrannosaurus that I have ever seen in person. But again, really, really beautiful paint application here on this side, very consistent with what we had seen on the previous side, and clearly an absolutely unbelievable sculpt, because I went into this review hoping not to really talk about the sculpt just because the review didn't get too long, and since I've already reviewed the sculpt numerous times already, I really didn't feel the need to talk about it again, but it's just that good of a sculpt that you can't help but talk about how incredibly well done it is. But definitely a really beautiful version of Wilson yet again from PNSO. As far as a size goes on Wilson, we're going to have to pull Wilson out of frame a little bit here to get the end of the tail in frame because he is quite large. You're looking at about 14.5 inches or around 37 centimeters for a length. And then for a height to the top of the head, you're looking at about 5 3/4 inches, somewhere in that range, or about 14, maybe close to 14.5 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pachylovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our absolutely unbelievably gorgeous Wilson the Tyrannosaurus Rex. And next to these figures, you should absolutely have a good idea of the fact that this Wilson figure is quite large. Impressive in the size department for sure. You can see it's actually quite a bit bigger than the Papo T-Rex as well, although the Papo T-Rex is in a completely different positioning than this Wilson version. But you can see that Mr. Papo Rex over there doesn't even want to look in the direction of Wilson due to the fact that Wilson is so insanely beautiful and highly detailed. And again, another unbelievable PNSO figure, but hopefully these figures here will show you around what the size of this extremely nicely done Wilson the Tyrannosaurus Rex is. So this 2020 version of Wilson the Tyrannosaurus Rex is another absolutely gorgeous version of this Tyrannosaurus Rex. I am head over heels in love with this figure as well, just like I was with the past two, although, like I stated, I definitely think this is my second favorite version of the figure, with the original version definitely being my favorite. I just really like the paint scheme on the first version, but this paint scheme is also extremely nicely done. I kind of wish I had my other two versions of Wilson out here to look at with it, but unfortunately they're both in storage currently, so I don't have them here to compare, but it's definitely a very, very nice looking figure in comparison to the previous two. If you actually have all three of the Wilson figures, or even two of them honestly, you could have a really cool kind of a pack of Tyrannosaurs, or a family of Tyrannosaurs. Since they all have that same sculpt, but different paint schemes, they'll look like a family, honestly, like they belong. Maybe this is like a female version, even though it's clearly Wilson. It's meant to imply it's a male, but having this kind of like, more of just like a plain brown type of a look for the most part, I think makes it look a little more like a female in comparison to that older original release, which had a little bit of a flashier appearance to more like a male type look. But again, even still, this one could absolutely still be a male too. It's just the other one had a little bit of a flashier look, I think, than this one. So if you have the two next to each other, I feel like the other one would look more like the male. This one would look more like the female. But as a standalone figure, without the other one included, this still makes an absolutely beautiful looking male version of a Tyrannosaurus Rex. The sculpt on this is honestly one of the single best dinosaur sculpts I have ever seen in my entire life as far as sculpt in detail goes. To say this is highly detailed would be pretty much an understatement. This is insanely highly detailed. As far as the sculpt goes on this figure, it is just off the charts by a mile. ridiculously nice is the way I would put it as far as the detailing of the Tyrannosaurus Rex goes. So insanely much sculpt work is put into this, so much detailing, and just in general looking at it, like, you can see every little ounce of movement that would be happening with this figure at this point in time is perfectly shown throughout the sculpt. Like, you could not possibly add any more detail to this figure that I can see anywhere to really make this any more highly detailed than it is. And when I say it's sculpted to the max, that is it. It is sculpted to the max. It is just unbelievable as far as the detailing goes. As far as the paintwork goes as well, it's beautiful. Very nicely done as far as this paint application goes. The many different tones of color on the figure give it an extremely realistic appearance, and overall has an absolutely beautiful look to it when it comes to the entire paint scheme together. From a kind of like a wide view, you can see just how beautiful it all looks and all ties together so perfectly. Really nice variations of brown, beautiful tones of brown that they've used for it, and then the way they've kind of like highlighted certain areas like the back and then the face and everything with like that black and that darker brownish type of a color looks really, really nice. And then you have those nice stripes that run down the length of the tail, as well as the addition of including the beautiful dark washes in certain areas like the stomach region and the underside. Just looks extremely nice, and again allowing it to look super realistic as far as the paintwork goes. And then you also have that kind of trademark PNSO light wash down on the feet, giving it that sort of dusty appearance, which is exactly the type of thing you would see if this were a real living dinosaur. The feet would definitely be dirty, and they look that way honestly on the figure. So again, just the littlest additions of things like that to add that extra bit of realism are the things I really love about companies and different figures, and this figure pretty much has it all, if you ask me. And the best part I think about it is that this figure only cost about $30 on Amazon on the PNSO store. So for this kind of quality, and as far as the sculpt and paint goes, for $30 is just unbelievable as far as that deal goes. Just off the charts insane. So I will include a link in the description to where you can purchase this on Amazon right now from PNSO. So make sure you head on over there. You click that link and purchase Wilson the Tyrannosaurus Rex right now. And make sure you also like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.